Canada has a reputation for calm, polite people, quiet suburbs, postcard mountains, and a national identity built on being predictable. But that's only the surface. Beneath it runs a parallel version of the country, one shaped by forgotten histories, strange decisions, and places so unusual you'd assume they were fiction, until you see the evidence. Today, we're stepping into 8 locations where Canada's public image and its hidden past quietly collide. Some of these places are beautiful, some are unsettling, and one of them will make you rethink what a normal government building even is. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're real sites, hiding in plain sight, woven into the landscape so seamlessly that most Canadians never noticed. If you think you know Canada, let's put that to the test. Number 1. The Hermetic Code of the Manitoba Legislative Building. Canada loves to look ordinary, bureaucratic, predictable. But in downtown Winnipeg stands a government building that is secretly an Egyptian temple. And no, this isn't a conspiracy theory. It's documented fact that went unnoticed for 87 years. The Manitoba Legislative Building is a Masonic blueprint modeled on King Solomon's temple, complete with hidden hieroglyphics on the roof, sphinxes nobody noticed, and a golden statue the government calls Enterprise, but is actually Hermes, the Greek guide of souls. Everything inside is coded. 3 staircases with 13 steps each, hallways with 13 lights, bison statues 13 feet long, an 8-pointed black star functioning as the Holy of Holies, a bust of Medusa. Thousands of government workers walked under for a century without seeing it. This place isn't hidden by secrecy, it's hidden by familiarity. Canadians walked past a temple disguised as a government office for generations. And if you think that's strange, wait until you hear what Canada hid at the top of the world. Take a moment. A government building hiding a temple isn't something you hear every day. Number 2. CFS Alert. At 82 degrees 30 minutes north, closer to the North Pole than to any Canadian city, sits a place most Canadians can't name. CFS Alert, the northernmost permanently inhabited place on Earth. Since 1958, Canada has run a fully classified signals intelligence station here. Temperatures hit 40 degrees Celsius. 4 months of darkness. Mandatory psychological screening before you're even allowed to go. Only 60 to 75 people live there at a time, rotating every 6 months. It's operated by the Canadian Forces and the Communications Security Establishment, a full Five Eyes intelligence partner. What they collect is classified. What it does to the people stationed there is something they struggle to explain when they return. The northern lights here are said to be the most extraordinary on Earth. You will never see them unless you have military clearance. And if you think a frozen intelligence outpost is intense, the next place was built to survive a nuclear blast. Number 3. The Diefenbunker. 30 kilometers west of Ottawa, beneath what used to look like ordinary farmland, sits a 4-story concrete bunker built between 1959 and 1961 for $22 million. The Diefenbunker was engineered to survive a 1-megaton nuclear blast from 1.8 kilometers away. Inside, a Bank of Canada vault, a CBC broadcast studio, a war cabinet room, dormitories where cabinet ministers slept in rooms identical to filing clerks. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, officials received their evacuation orders. If the missiles had launched, 535 people would have gone underground, while the rest of the country's 17 million Canadians faced the fallout above. Today it's a museum. You can walk through the dorms. The labels are still on the doors. It feels like stepping into a future Canada hoped would never arrive. But if you think a nuclear bunker is the strangest thing Canada ever's built, the next place helped train the real-world inspiration for James Bond. And here's the unsettling part. This wasn't some hypothetical scenario. It was a plan waiting for a signal. Number 4. Camp X, Whitby, Ontario. If you've ever watched a James Bond movie and thought, that's pure fiction, here's the twist. Part of that world was born in Whitby, Ontario. In 1941, Canada quietly built Camp X, the first Allied spy training facility in North America. It sat on the Lake Ontario shoreline, hidden in plain sight, created specifically to bypass American neutrality laws before Pearl Harbor. Between 500 and 2,000 agents trained here in sabotage, explosives, covert operations, wireless telegraphy, and a discipline politely called silent killing. The camp also housed Hydra, the most powerful radio transmitter in North America, relaying coded messages across the Atlantic. Ian Fleming, yes, that Ian Fleming visited during the war. Historians believe the cold precision and operational mindset he saw here helped shape the world of James Bond. When the war ended, the buildings weren't abandoned. They were deliberately demolished to erase evidence. Today, it's a public park. Families walk their dogs over what used to be the most advanced spy school on the continent. And if you think a spy academy turned dog park is surreal, the next secret is literally sitting at the bottom of a Great Lake. Number 5. The Avro Aero test models at the bottom of Lake Ontario. In the 1950s, Canada built something unbelievable: the Avro Aero, the most advanced interceptor aircraft in the world. It hit Mach 1.9 in level flight decades ahead of its time. Then, in 1959, the government canceled the entire program. 6 completed aircraft were cut apart with blowtorches. All documentation was ordered destroyed. But here's the part almost nobody knows. Before cancellation, engineers launched 9 1/8 scale test models on Nike rockets over Lake Ontario. They hit Mach 1.7, transmitted aerodynamic data, and then crashed into the lake. They stayed there for over 60 years. One was finally recovered in 2018. The others are still down there, pieces of a vanished aerospace program resting under zebra mussels in cold freshwater. The only reason we know as much as we do? A draftsman named Ken Barnes quietly disobeyed orders and hid the blueprints in his basement for decades. And if you think nuclear-era aircraft buried underwater is wild, the next place involves 2 forgotten nuclear accidents Canada never classified. Strange enough? Good, because the next chapter is even harder to believe. Number 6. Chalk River Laboratories, the world's forgotten nuclear accidents. Just 180 kilometers northwest of Ottawa sits Chalk River Laboratories, home to 2 of the world's earliest and least remembered nuclear accidents. The first happened in 1952, when the NRX reactor suffered a power surge and a hydrogen explosion that blew the reactor vessel seal 4 feet into the air. Workers pumped 4,500 cubic meters of radioactive water into ditches near the Ottawa River. One of the cleanup crew members, a young U.S. Navy lieutenant named Jimmy Carter, who later became president. He reported radioactive urine for weeks afterward. 6 years later, another accident hit the same facility. A burning nuclear fuel rod was extinguished by scientists sprinting past it in relay teams dumping buckets of wet sand. Neither disaster was classified. They were simply never widely reported. Civilian cleanup workers didn't receive compensation until 2021, nearly 70 years later. And if you think forgotten nuclear accidents are unsettling, the next secret place shows what happens when a Cold War radar fence is abandoned overnight. Number 7. The abandoned and contaminated dew line stations. During the Cold War, the US and Canada built a 5,000-kilometer radar fence across the Arctic. The distant Early Warning Line, 63 stations, 25,000 workers. 32 months from nothing to fully operational. For 36 years, operators watched radar screens 24/7, waiting for the green slash that meant nuclear missiles coming over the pole. Then automation arrived and the people didn't just leave, they vanished. When an engineer visited one abandoned station in 1973, he found meals still on plates, sheets still on beds, personal items left exactly where they were dropped. It looked like everyone had been told to evacuate in 5 minutes and obeyed. But the real secret isn't the abandonment. It's what was left behind. Hundreds of thousands of fuel drums leaking PCBs, mercury, lead, asbestos, and antifreeze into Arctic permafrost. Equipment was driven onto sea ice and left to sink when spring came. The contamination is still being cleaned up in 2026. And the people Cold War planners once described as not existing in the empty frozens wasteland. The Inuit, they're the ones who stayed. They're the ones living with the aftermath. And if you think that's haunting, the final secret place is even heavier, because it connects a tiny northern community to one of the darkest moments in human history. Before we go on, take a breath. This final story isn't just hidden history, it's a wound. Number 8. Port Radium and the Highway of the Atom. In the Northwest Territories, on the shores of Great Bear Lake, lies Port Radium, a mine that quietly shaped the 20th century in ways most Canadians never learned. Between 1942 and 1945, men from the community of Deline carried uranium ore along a 2,100-kilometer transport route known as the Highway of the Atom. They loaded barges, slept on ore sacks, and ate with contaminated hands. Nobody told them the material was dangerous. That uranium entered the Manhattan Project. It contributed to the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Deline people had a traditional name for the ore: the rock that kills. They knew something was wrong long before any government admitted it, because no government ever did. Men from the community later died of cancer in elevated numbers. Federal remediation cost $24.5 million. In 1998, Deline elders traveled to Hiroshima to apologize not for something they chose, but for something done to them without their knowledge. Elder Louis Aya had prophesied decades earlier that rocks in the area would be made to burn and bring great evil into the world. He was right. Canada's secrets were never hidden, we just stopped noticing them. These 8 places show how the biggest stories weren't buried, only ignored. They're still out there, untouched, waiting for anyone who bothers to look. So the real mystery isn't them. It's what we're overlooking next.